Let's talk more about the president's climate agenda. Mitch Landrieu is a senior advisor to President Biden, serving as infrastructure coordinator. He's also a former mayor of New Orleans and former lieutenant governor of Louisiana. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Brett.
Why is this important now, right now at this time, when families are dealing with high gas prices and inflation and trying to put food on the table?
Well, first of all, you don't get to pick the controversies that are in front of you. The president has to deal with a lot of things at one time. It's not now. It's been with us for quite a long time. Today, 100 million people in the United States of America, if you go outside, are suffering from extreme heat. If you think about the wildfires that are coursing across the West, the hurricanes, we're in hurricane season in the southern part of the country, the tornadoes, I think everybody knows that we have a challenge with the consequences of extreme weather, and this is not going to go away. It's going to get worse before it gets better unless we take significant action. And I think the president basically was uttering today that he's going to use the power that's vested in him in the presidency to actually do what needs to be done if Congress will not act or won't act as soon as he thinks they should.
Yeah. New York Times, Siena College had a poll recently asking the question, is climate change the most important problem facing the country today? Total voters, 1% said it was. Democrats, 3% said it was the most important. And young people, age 18 to 29, 3%. Here's Senator Barrasso today on this.
The president and the great majority of Democrats are completely out of touch with the American people. There's an inflation crisis, an energy crisis, a border crisis, a crime crisis. But the White House and the Democrats have a crisis, too. A crisis of competence and a crisis of credibility. 2/3 of Americans say the president and the Democrats are focusing on the wrong things.
So your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, prices in the country are the number one problem, and inflation is. The president knows that, and he works on that every day. Secondly, the president has been working very hard on crime and is going to talk about this extensively again for the third or fourth time in the last couple of weeks, and is working on that. But he's the president, and he has to work on everything. If you ask people about climate, that's one thing. But if you ask them about the hurricane that's barreling down on them, the wildfire that's about to burn their home, the heat that's exhausting them and their families, they'll say, you know what, we've got a real problem. We have to fix that, too. And so the president is the president of everybody in America, and he's the president of all the issues, and he's got to deal with them. And it would be much more helpful for the senator, instead of complaining, to actually lift a hand and help, rather than constantly criticizing and not offering constructive solutions that make sense.
Yeah. When a lot of people listen to some members of the cabinet, they hear this message that maybe it's okay, maybe the pain right now is what we need. Here's just a little compilation of what we heard recently.
We're not going to sit around waiting for Congress, but we are going to use every tool we can to develop plans that actually achieve those goals.
The more pain we are all experiencing from the high price of gas, the more benefit there is for those who can access electric vehicles.
The way in which we can assure reasonable energy expenses for households is to move to renewables to address climate change.
Different people hear different things in those sound bites, but basically, you're a politician, you're a former politician. You're heading towards November. That's a tough sell, right? Just suck up the pain and buy an electric vehicle? Different people say
different things different ways. This president understands the pain of the people in the country. You understand this. He talks about this all the time. He grew up in a household when he's sitting around the kitchen table. When the price of gas went up, they felt it. I feel it when I fill my car up. The president knows that. And oh, by the way, for the last 36 days, gas has gone down in a consistent way, in large measure because of the president's action. And he works on this every day. He also works on inflation, which, as you know, was mostly caused by the issue of COVID and, of course, Putin's war. The president has called business leaders into the country, and he really understands this. But as I said to you just a moment ago, the president doesn't have the luxury of just focusing on one problem. He has to focus on all of them, and he has to fight for the American people. And that is, in fact, what he is doing. One of the great challenges that we have is that the environment is really starting to get stressed. It has been stressed, and if we don't fix it, we're going to continue to have the kind of dangerous impetuses that have been occurring on a more regular basis. And so the president's going to use the power that he has to do what is necessary to protect the American people.
All right, two more things quickly. One is
Sure.
that you mentioned that you're giving the president credit for the gas prices going down, but when they went up, it was Vladimir Putin and the Ukraine war.
Well, we can say it another way. When it went up, you guys accused him for making it happen, and when it went down, you forgot to give him credit for it. And so
well,
I'm happy to negotiate with you.
It started going up before the Ukraine war started. But
that is. Let me say this too. The other thing that's happening is when the price of barrel goes up, the price of gas goes up, and when it goes down, it doesn't go down. And the president called that out, and we need to work on that too, because it's the American people that ought to benefit, and not big oil.
And last thing, I want to get to some substance on something that you deal with. How much of what you're dealing with the infrastructure deals with fixing the grid across the country? That deals with the ability for electric cars to get from the East Coast to the West Coast with charging stations. How much of what you're doing is going to deal with that?
Well, I thank you for that, because there's a massive amount of funding in this bill to protect the American public from the challenges we have from climate, electrical vehicle charging stations, clean energy, and investments that the president talked about today to help people build back in a stronger way, so that when these catastrophic events come to us, like they come from my hometown, New Orleans, that we're in a better position to deal with it and to deal with the heating problems. And so the electric grid is a critical problem. We are in constant contact with the utilities that are actually doing this. We're going to fortify the grid, and we're going to expand its capacity so that as we move into electric vehicles, which is where we're heading, that we have the capacity to do jobs that's necessary to create lower cost and better options for the American people.
Senior Advisor to the President, Mitch Landrieu, we always appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks, Brett.